Joined by Mark Mousens and Sal Licata. 11-1 to start the season. Where did you go? Now we want to chip off deGrom and Syndergaard. But Sal, let's start with you. You heard John. John wrote the column, and now you heard him talking about the possibility of moving Jacob deGrom. Are we there yet for the Mets to move your best assets or your best players?
Yeah, no, we're not there yet. I understand the thinking of it. I mean, if things continue to go the way that they're going, the Mets don't have any young players in the foreseeable future that are going to go up and change things right away. So the only way to do that will be to trade one or those two guys. It's not going to happen. They're not going to do that. It's mid-May. They're a game over 500. They've showed, as you talked about, Eamon, that they could be a good ball club in the first 2 weeks. Okay, the last 4 weeks have been miserable. They'll level out somewhere in between. And I think ultimately you look to build around those two guys. For years, they've been trying to build around 5 guys in the rotation. I always thought that was a mistake. Pick those 2 and then try to add to it. I'm not ready to give up either of those 2.
Yeah, I'm not ready to give up on either of those 2, but let's be realistic here. I mean, let's look at the game plan for organizations long term. You're going to do what the Stros did. You're going to do what, say, the Yankees did, what the Chicago Cubs did, and you're going to build around position players. You're not going to build around starters. Starters don't stay healthy, and that's been the issue when you looked at this Mets team, is that all the potential, a lot of that potential has never been realized because guys can't stay healthy. You've seen a downturn in some of the performance, and Matt Harvey is now a member of the Cincinnati Reds. To get to that stage, though, I think you'd have to really be even worse than the 9-18 they are over the next 27 games. You'd have to really be far superior. You'd have to be irrelevant. And I think I have a hard time envisioning a team that was 11-1, 12-2 being irrelevant that quickly come July 31st that you're thinking about pairing off deGrom and Syndergaard. I get the idea that Harper's making, and I understand it. If you could trade Jacob deGrom, and I could get 3 solutions. I could get a caliber catcher that I know is going to be a starter for the next 10 years. I can get a corner first baseman that's going to be a starter for the next decade. I can find 3 big answers as position players long term. I get it. I understand it, because I think that's going to give you more sustained long-term success than building around a starting rotation.
But Sandy Alderson is in a tough spot here. If you're looking at it and you believe in the Braves and you think they're not just a good month there and they're coming and they're only going to get better, and if you're going to move Jacob deGrom, the problem is, though, you're kind of stuck with a lot of other people. Okay, you can, as you mentioned, the Yankees. Okay, you can trade Aroldis Chapman and get back stud prospects, but they also moved McCann and Beltran and other people to almost restock their farm system on the fly. The Mets can't move Frazier or Bruce or some of their high-priced veterans.
No, but for argument's sake, say if you trade, say, Jacob deGrom, right, and he goes, and you add 3 position players that become starters for you in the not-so-distant future, then all of a sudden you resolve 3 positions at that stage in your everyday lineup, right? And then you have a starting rotation surrounded around Noah Syndergaard. Then you have to see Steven Matz look better last 2 turns through the rotation. You see with Zach Wheeler, say if he is a number 5 starter, you can survive with that. Vargas has been an absolute mistake. Maybe you plug Lugo into that rotation. There's a way to go, and then you strengthen the bullpen as well, Sal, because there has to come a point in time where you make an adaptation as an organization and realize the way baseball is being played in 2018 is the minimization of the starting rotation, the emphasis of the bullpen, and obviously building around power and offense in that lineup. And I think that's where the Mets are a little bit behind the times right now.
Well, I think like anything else in life, you have to have a balance. And for years, the Mets neglected to have a balance. We talked about it at the time. Whether I was wrong for wanting to trade Syndergaard, right for wanting to trade Wheeler, we talked about trading for an area of strength where they had 5 of those young guys. They didn't. They kept all those guys. It never panned out the way that they had hoped. Now they're in a spot where they don't have any young position players, impact position players coming up. Not this year, not next year, and that is the problem. I still, though, first of all, it's way too early to consider right now. I still believe they're better off building around Syndergaard and deGrom and adding to that, trying to figure out a way to bring in some players.
But right now, if you're going to add to it, you're going to have to spend money.
Well, you're
going to have to spend money.
One or the other. You have to either spend money or you have to draft right, and they haven't drafted right. So then you'd have to trade Syndergaard or deGrom.
Okay, but if you draft right, those guys are not going to be ready in time before Jacob deGrom.
Well, not anymore.
Right. That's the problem you have.
All I know is I'm sending a PA to the library to find the tapes where people told me they would not trade Zach Wheeler for Giancarlo Stanton, because I know I've had that argument on this network.